Today, I'm going to be talking about what I believe to be the top 5 best and worst anime that released this year. Obviously, everyone is entitled to their own opinion with this. This is just my personal opinion in regards to these anime. Another factor taken is I obviously haven't seen every anime this year, as to do that would mean I would be doing this as a full-time job, which I'm not yet. But I believe I've seen enough anime this year to formulate an opinion about what I believe shined as a diamond in the rough and which one sunk to the bottom of the barrel and is sort of still drowning at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. But please, if you guys do like this kind of content, please be sure to subscribe and drop a like. I don't know why I'm speaking like this now, because I kept stuttering my words. Also, I do have a bunch of other socials in my description if you want to go check those out. I do other anime content on those specific and even taken some requests. So if you want to see some kind of stuff, drop me a message on there. I'll try and respond. Now, the first anime I'm going to be talking about is Frieren. I believe this was one of the best picks for the year 2024. I know it started airing in 2023, however, it finished airing in March of this year, so I'm counting it on the list. I personally think Frieren was one of the most perfect season 1 animes, or even one of the most perfect animes out there. I believe it overtaking Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood on my anime list was deserved, and it is a beautiful accolade for it, as it is such a well done anime which isn't complicated to watch. You don't need any previous details. You don't need to understand how magic systems work. Everything is kind of explained to you, and it is such a simplistic yet narrative driven story. The characters are amazing. Stark is one of my favorite sort of flips from a strong character who is a bit of a whimpering child into someone who is able to fight a dragon, which I feel like is such a wonderful sort of flip to his arc, his character arc. I feel like the whole story of Frieren trying to repeat their journeys with a different group to try and reconnect with those emotional ties she had at the beginning with her own group and experience human life a bit more as an elf is wonderful. I think the art style is gorgeous, the soundtrack, the world building. There is not a singular bad thing I can think about this series. I know the story at the beginning is a little slow, but I think the slow start attributes to it being a more flushed out series as a whole. Unlike some of these other anime that released this year, where it was a very quick start and they kind of threw you out into the deep end and hoped you could swim, I feel like Frieren held your hand going into the pool and sort of dragged you along, but did it in such a nice, sweet way that I honestly believe Frieren winning anime of the year isn't the most drastic or far-fetched thing. I believe Frieren, in all honesty, is my pick for a perfect anime, and I hope that all of you get a chance to watch it, especially with the new season coming out at some point. I don't think we ever got a confirmed release date for it. Now we're going to go on to one of the worst picks I have seen from this year in terms of anime production, and it is unfortunately an anime I did a video on a little earlier this year, Ninja Kamui. Ninja Kamui had such a promising start with such a visually appealing fight style choreography type of anime, and I really enjoyed watching it. I'm a big man when it comes to choreography in my anime and also soundtrack, and I feel like Ninja Kamui ticked all my boxes apart from story, and then it slowly started transitioning into this 3D sort of jumbled mess where there was no real story anymore. The mech fights became a big prominent feature in Ninja Kamui, and I feel like each episode it went on, it was just a more disappointing watch than the last. I am really disappointed in Ninja Kamui, and I hope that the studio that did it looks back and sort of tries the style of Ninja Kamui again, but sticks to the 2D animation rather than flipping to 3D and then to mech fights, because you had a really cool concept there. The actual art style for episode 1 and episode 2 was phenomenal, and I feel like you have a promising idea there. Ninja Kamui just had such a good start and such a massive fall off that I am very disappointed. I hope to see studios learn from this, we'll say. However, back on a more upbeat note, the second anime that I'm going to choose from what I believe one of the best that came out this year was Wistoria Wand and Sword. Now, this is a very dark horse pick for a lot of people because it kind of got overshadowed by a lot of the trailers for the later anime we were getting, like Bleach 1000 Year Blood Work and Blue Lock Season 2. And then it got undervalued by a lot of the anime that had released beforehand, like your Kaiju number 8, everything, Wistoria kind of fell under the radar. But I believe Wistoria had one of the coolest build-ups of this year. I believe it was a very undervalued anime, despite the fact it had amazing voice acting. The soundtrack was phenomenal. The sound design was amazing. The animation was glorious. That was like UFO table level animation, I would argue. I believe that the overall story was amazing. I just feel like Wistoria 1 and Sword fell into a very Dark Horse situation, because a lot of people were calling it like a Mashle or a Black Clover ripoff, but I believe Wistoria fit into a box that is similar to those two, but it wouldn't be the same, because Wistoria's story with Will honestly seems more inclined to be like a very old school kind of anime. I couldn't remember the name of it for the life of me, but if someone can find out, let me know. But I believe Will's story, if we get a season 2 for Wistoria, it keeps up with the animation budget, it keeps up with the sound design, the voice acting and everything. I think Wistoria 1 and Sword could be a heavy contender for one of the heavy hitters of the next couple of years. Wistoria 1 and Sword is going to be my second pick for best anime came out this year. In terms of my second pick, however, for worst anime, it is another one that had a phenomenal fall off, which was Uzumaki. Uzumaki was a manga that I believe was written by Junji Ito, and it was such a visually appealing manga to look at. The actual art style was very interesting, and it was creepy. You almost got that sense of having to stop and look at the page for 30 seconds after reading each one just to process everything. And I feel like that really attributed to the overall creepiness of his writing style. Unfortunately, when it came to the anime adaptation, however, everything past episode 2 and everything further was a utter disgrace on his work. I feel like episode 1 was the only one that had a true tribute to Junji Ito's work, and a very well done one at that. But again, after episode 1, the animation style became sloppy, repetitive, and honestly quite negligent of his work. And I feel like it was quite a disappointing watch. Seeing as it is only 4 episodes, you would think they'd have a decent budget to work with, but it just seems like the writers were like, 1 episode's done, it's good, we got the fans hooked, let's leave it. Let's leave it and let like 2 people work on it. Let's let Ron the cleaner work on it for a little bit and see how he does. And I feel like that was very disrespectful to the mangaka's work, and I feel like it was disrespectful to us as an anime community, because this was such a well-written horror manga that it's difficult to see it fall off in the anime format. So that's why Uzumaki is going to take my place as number 2 worst pick this year. Now, obviously, I have to put this one on here. It's a little bit of, I appreciate the anime, but it is a little overhyped in my opinion. I believe Solo Leveling Season 1 has to be on this list as one of the top 5 best animes, if we're looking at it from an objective standpoint. I personally don't see as much of an appeal into it as the audience does. However, that is only because of the story. Everything else is absolutely phenomenal about Solo Leveling, from the OSTs, the soundtrack, the sound design, the sound quality, the art style. I would say the choreography, everything about Solo Leveling is phenomenal. The story is the only thing that didn't capture me, but I do have enough respect on Solo Leveling to put it in the number 3 slot. I feel like Solo Leveling is one of the ones a lot of people were voting for anime of the year, and I can see why, because it is such a well done translation from the light novel or the webtoon, I can't remember which one it was, into the animation format. And I feel like Solo Leveling really opened that gateway, along with Tower of God, for people to start funneling in these light novels to the anime format, and it's sort of opened the gates for a lot of these new ones. Like, we're getting the beginning after the end into a anime now, which I feel like is huge for some anime fans, but a lot of light novel fans. And so that's why I believe Solo Leveling should take my place on the number 3 slot of best anime this year. My third pick for worst anime of the year, and this is a very consistent list for worst anime picks, is Metallic Rouge. I've seen maybe 6 episodes of this, and I forgot I even watched those 6 episodes because I think I just blanked it from my memory for how bad it was. There was so many plot twists in like singular episodes that it just became such an entangled and not even well written, just a very confusing story to follow, which is a shame because I feel like it had the potential to be good. But unfortunately, Metallic Rouge falls into the bracket of trying to do too much in too little time and expecting it to work, or expecting fans to enjoy it. I feel like Metallic Rouge is one of the biggest disappointments. I can't even do much to comment on it apart from just calling it bad, because that is genuinely just what it is. It had no real redeeming factors. The story was convoluted as hell. I wasn't the biggest fan of anyone in the cast. Yeah, Metallic Rouge is just bad, and that's why it's getting the number 3 slot on my worst anime list. Now, in terms of this number 4 pick for best anime of the year, I believe there is only one real contender, and that is in terms of soundtrack, which is one of the biggest underdogs of the year, Kaiju number 8. Seeing this as an anime with a English opening, ending, and a really well done soundtrack. Youngblood One Republic killed it with the OSTs, but I feel like in terms of just soundtrack in general throughout the entire series, everything hyped up the scenes that much more. And I feel like Kaiju number 8 also broke this preconceived notion we have of anime MCs, where they need to be this really young main character in a group of older characters. That is, the young character is the strongest, or a 4,000-year-old man in a 5-year-old's body. I feel like it broke that trope with Kafka being the MC, even though he's one of the oldest characters in the show, in the sense of he's in his 30s to 40s. And I feel like that was such a good choice, because it showed us that you can write main characters that do not fit within a trope or a specific bubble of requirements. And I feel like Kafka broke that bubble with the fact he was an older main character who didn't get strength from heritage or training or anything. His only strength became of luck when he got ingested with Kaiju number 8. Now, this is purely from the anime perspective, so if there's any hints later on in the manga that there was a heritage thing, I don't want to know, because this is purely off an anime only perspective that I feel like Kaiju number 8 needs to be in the conversation when it comes to best anime this year. And that is why it is going into my number 4 slot. And the number 4 for my list on the worst anime that came out this year is the Suicide Squad Isekai. Obviously, this is an isekai, which involves the main villains being Harley Quinn, Deathstroke, King Shark, and all these characters being isekai'd into an anime world and learning to grow in that anime world. And I just feel like there was nothing interesting apart from that. The concept was so cool because we got to see these villains and these characters that we've heard stories about, we've seen comics about beforehand, be thrown into a world and how they would react to an anime. And it was just kind of bland. There was nothing interesting. The animation quality was poor in most episodes. It had 1 or 2 episodes where the animation quality did spike up, and it was prevalent that it spiked up. However, apart from that, Suicide Squad Isekai, for the concept and the hype that it had built around it, that might be just due to us anime fans building up too much hype for these. But for the hype and everything that was built around it, Suicide Squad Isekai couldn't live up to it. And it was a bit of a shame, because I feel like that more put a black stain onto the whole genre of Isekai, saying, and a lot of people are attributing Suicide Squad Isekai being bad to it being an Isekai, which I don't think is the case, but that is for another video. I believe Suicide Squad Isekai just fell short of the marker because they didn't stay true to the characters and how they would react. They wanted to have an isekai and use DC as the sort of poster for it, which I feel like really ruined the anime for me there. And the number 5 for me, I know a lot of people might be expecting me to put Dandadan on the list, or a lot of people might be expecting me to put earlier ones like Go-Go Loser Ranger on the list. But for me personally, I believe the number 5 best anime has to go to Windbreaker. I feel like as basic as it is and as much of a story as it lacks, it shows people that choreography in fights is 10 times better than what a heavy animation budget will do in a fight. I feel like the whole thing with Windbreaker is, even though it does come from a very fight-only central anime, I believe for the fact that it is heavy into choreography, it does not show flashy fights. As a fighting based anime, I believe it was the best anime to come out this year. The choreography first was insane. I like Sakura's sort of main character style, where I know it's the stereotypical trope of I'm lonely, I'm sad, no one loves me, yada yada yada, but I feel like with his backstory and with what we will see later on coming into season 2, it really does hammer that in, and I hope they keep up this heavy choreography style of fights, because that is honestly one of the biggest things that's visually appealing to me. I feel like as well with the choreography, the music is also phenomenal. there's not really any dislikable characters in the show either. So I feel like Windbreaker, another dark horse pick for me, but just because I didn't put Dandadan or any of those people on these lists does not mean I didn't enjoy them. It's just I feel like these are more my kind of anime, if that makes sense. And that's why Windbreaker is going at my number 5. Now, obviously, for my last one for the worst anime of this year, a lot of people would be expecting me to put Blue Lock on here because Blue Lock has been one of the most disappointing animes of this year. However, with the last season not coming out till tomorrow, I'm recording this on the 27th, I don't want to put it on there in the hopes that this last episode actually does well. Spoiler alert, the last episode of Blue Lock was absolutely phenomenal. I would recommend everyone go watch it, and yeah, comeback of the century for them. Because the only thing bad about Blue Lock is the animation. Everything else people kind of just choose to neglect, but the animation is the only true thing bad about Blue Lock. So that's why for my number 5, I am pushing the only sequel series on this list, Tower of God Season 2. The reason I'm pushing Tower of God Season 2 on this list, and it is quite simply, it's not what Season 1 was. Season 1 built up this huge amount of hype about Tower of God that even the light novel was building up to Season 1. It had this huge potential behind it. It had this big name that a lot of light novel readers were looking forward to. And Season 2's story was just, it wasn't there. A lot of the stuff with Tower of God Season 2 is it had lackluster animation quite a bit at the time, and it was just a little rushed, it felt. It didn't feel like they put as much love into it as they did Season 1, and honestly, that is probably why I'm pushing Tower of God in Season 2. There was probably some other picks out there I could have put in my top 5, but I feel like others had redeeming factors, and a lot of these were Season 1s that I've put on this list. Tower of God was the only sequel season that story also didn't interest me just as much as animation. At least Blue Lock's animation was bad, but the story interested me. And that is why Tower of God is my number 5 pick for worst anime this year. And that is my list for what I believe to be the top 5 best and worst anime that released this year. But as always, this is my opinion on these shows. Some people might have differing opinions, like some people wouldn't put Windbreaker on this list, and that is entirely understandable. I am just a guy who really enjoys choreography and soundtrack in a anime, and I feel like Windbreaker nailed the introduction of sound design and soundtrack and choreography. So that is why I put it in my top 5. I encourage you to make your own top 5 best and worst list and tag me in them on TikTok if you're going to do it, and I will do my genuine reaction to them. Otherwise, yeah, thank you all for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in the new year, where we're going to try and do more anime content because I've been getting a little lazy with doing them on this platform, but yeah, I'll try and be more consistent with it now. As always, thank you all for showing up. Be sure to subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and I will see you all in the next video.